Forge Gang! I'm still a hard man. Let's go. You gotta say Forge Gang, and you gotta say it like a hard man. All right. There we go. There we go. We're back. Okay. So now I'm going to be doing life in classical Pompeii. Actually, it was called Herculaneum. Yeah. This is life in ancient Herculaneum, which is actually the name of what it was at the time of the Roman Empire. So, I'll be doing life in classical Pompeii. And hopefully, we can get this going. All right, so I'll go ahead and share a screen and get down to this. This is just more of a continuation of my coverage of life in ancient Rome, ancient Greece. So I'll go ahead and get started sharing the screen. There we go. All right, let's do this. This is the Science Daily, Everyday Life in Pompeii Revealed. There is a common perception that life in the once thriving Roman city of Pompeii is well known from the wealth of artifacts that have been uncovered since its accidental discovery in 1748. But this is far from the case. According to findings of University of Leicester archaeologist Dr. Penelope M. Allison. Until recently, archaeologists working on Pompeian artifacts have tended to concentrate on examples of art, some of it erotic, from the town that was suddenly destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in August of 79 AD. But Dr. Allison's recently published book, The Insula of the Menander in Pompeii, Volume 3, defines a contextual study has changed this emphasis. I am looking at pots and pans and how houses actually functioned, she said. I am interested in revealing the utilitarian side of life rather than its glamorous side in slaves and servants and how they live side by side with their masters. We always assumed that servants were kept out of sight, but this is a 19th century view. If we look at the distribution of domestic material in Pompeii houses, such as the cupboards where pots and pans were kept, we find they were in the main front hall, the atrium, where visitors would be received. The same is true of the main household water supply. Slaves would be coming to get these things all the time and would be far from invisible. Dr. Allison has been working on Pompeii for over 20 years. Her previous study was to look at 30 houses in the light of the everyday objects that have been largely ignored in favor of more exotic finds. She became fascinated by what the actual objects might have been used for and who might have used them. Today we have hundreds of very specific gadgets, she said, but in a non-gadget world, you have a number of things used for a variety of purposes, such as pots that might have been wine dippers and spindle whorls that were used as furniture ornamentation. Also, we assume we know about doctors in the Roman world. We believe that whenever we find in medical instruments, they belong to doctors. But I think that a lot more high level first aid went on within households. We have found surgical instruments in domestic contexts, and I think someone in the house was responsible for sewing up injured people. Nowadays, we have a much more specialized approach to looking after the human body. Dr. Allison also speculates on the amount of cooking that went on in the huge kitchens of in affluent Roman households. I found little braziers and flat vessels that were burned underneath that might have been used round the house, more like our barbecues, indicating that food was heated up in front of dinners. Maybe Roman cooking smells did not offend these dinners. She has found no seats of tableware in Pompeian houses, such as are found in Roman burial sites. Formal dining could have been very rare, she surmises, with people perhaps eating on the wing, much as busy families do today. The implications of her research and recent book stretch beyond Pompeii itself to how other Roman sites can be interpreted. Because of the suddenness of its destruction, Pompeii offers a context for the artifacts that are found, in a way that virtually no other site can do. She has been looking at objects found in the same room and speculating on what on that suggests in terms of usage of such objects. For instance, why were this plate and these lamps found together? Were they indicative of some kind of offering? What were the lamps for? What was the situation that brought them together? And how would you have lit this place? She asks. Other finds that have puzzled her are the large quantities of heavy stone weights and scales in houses. Today, everything has its weight written on it when we buy it, she explains. But in the Roman world, everything would have to be weighted coming in and out of the houses. Also, where there are a number of looms found in one house, does this imply commercial activity? Not necessarily. We need to think more carefully about the relationship between commercial wool shops and the houses. Did women buy wool from shops and weave for their own households, selling off the surplus? We don't know. This is not something archaeologists have looked at. Was weaving done by both men and women? We would assume men were involved in any commercial environment, but this is just our conception. We are taking Roman domestic life into a more intellectual realm, Dr. Allison said, added a caution. Domestic life in the past was not necessarily the same as it is nowadays. So just let that sink in for you for a second about that. I'm going to check to see if my audio is working right fast, just to make sure. Yeah, I'm just going to check to see how my audio is going on the stream. Stream. Okay, we're doing good. Excellent. All right, so daily life in ancient Pompeii. Archaeological excavations of Pompeii represent an exceptional source of information about daily life in Pompeii and in the Roman Empire under the rule of Emperor Tito. Historians wrote about daily life in Rome that was not different from one of our grandparents. Life was made of simple actions, and it was actually far from our stressful life. Hora prima diurna. Since there was no electricity, people had to live according to the rhythms of the sun. They got up very early in the morning to start their work. Only a few houses had water, so most citizens had to go to take water at public fountains. Water was very important. This is why it was used with great parsimony. Parsimony. For their personal care and to wash themselves, Romans went to thermal baths. For breakfast, they ate bread and cheese, maybe with vegetable or anything left. Barbers' shops opened at sunrise. These shops were also a place to chat and relax. Hora secunda. Everything was at work. Everyone was at work, from noble merchants to slaves. Shops were open, markets were ready, farmers were in the fields. Everyone was performing her personal job. Hora quiarta. Hora quiarta. Streets were crowded, market was full of life. Sellers sold and citizens bought what they needed. In the forum, people walked, talked, discussed about problems of the town. Hora septima. This was the moment for relax. Sometimes rich noblemen offered to the town an exhibition of gladiators, and so people went to the amphitheater. This was a very cruel and violent show. We could not appreciate it today. Some people consider the gladiators and their performances like the football matches of today. Fans fought as they do today. After a terrible fight between fans from Pompeii and fans from Nokera, that provoked several deaths, the shows with gladiators were prohibited for several years. Nero restored them to satisfy a request by Poppaea, which came from Pompeii. This is also the perfect moment for a break made of bread, cake, fish, fruits, etc. Hora octava. This is the moment of thermal baths. They were cheap, and also slaves can use them. This was the best way to allow people to wash themselves, also relaxing or having fun in a period in which only a few houses were provided with water. Average life expectancy during Roman age was 35 years, more than the previous and the following periods. Romans could not know what the most important discovery for human health was hygiene. Romans could not know that the most important discovery for human health was hygiene. Today, we cannot understand why they passed from hot to cold water, but thermal baths do not have to be considered as modern beauty farms. They were also the place for business and politics. People also exercised in these facilities. Mens sana in corpore sano. Hora decima. A short time before sunset, Romans had dinner, eating olives and eggs, and if they could afford it, also fish, meat, cakes. They did not have many possibilities of entertainment. Streets were not a safe place, so they went to bed early. And for more info in Italian about the Roman calendar and Roman day, you can visit the Calendario Romano. Wikipedia, Italy Wikipedia, Wiki, Calendario Romano. This was written by Ettore Pinilla, translation by Linda Ligiori. I think Pompeii was on the Amalfi coast, if not mistaken. It was it was Pompeii and Heracleum. All right, Pompeii, Italy. The story of Pompeii, from ancient glory to modern rediscovery. Nestled in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii stands as a testament to the grandeur of the Roman Empire and the enduring allure of ancient history. This guide embarks you on a journey back in time to the bustling streets and homes of a city frozen in a tragic yet fascinating moment. Pompeii's story is one of prosperity, catastrophe, and rebirth, spanning centuries from its peak to rediscovery. Founded in the 7th or 6th century BC, Pompeii flourished as a vibrant trading center in Roman city. Its streets were lined with elegant houses and imposing public buildings, reflecting the wealth and culture of its inhabitants. Life in Pompeii was a rich tapestry of cultural exchanges, bustling markets, and artistic achievements. But this lively scene was dramatically halted in 79 AD when Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying the city under a thick layer of ash and pumice. Lost to memory, Pompeii lay dormant under the volcanic debris for centuries, its stories and splendors hidden from the world. It was not until 1748 that explorers began to uncover what was essentially a city frozen in time. The ash that had spelled doom for the inhabitants preserved their city in incredible detail, offering an unparalleled window into ancient life. Homes, temples, and even poignant casts of the victims offer a haunting yet captivating glimpse into a day that started like any other. Rediscovery turned Pompeii into a symbol of the enduring legacy of the past, drawing visitors and scholars eager to walk its streets and learn its secrets. Today, as you step through the ancient gates, you're not just visiting a site, you're entering a story centuries in the making, ready to explore the echoes of Roman life that still resonate through these ruins. All right, so this is talking about Pompeii taxis and how to drive there. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and skip over some of the modern stuff. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay. Looks like it's going to be one of those nights where there's not going to be a lot of traffic into the chat. It's already been 20 minutes. Dang. All right. Pompeii taxis, whether arriving from the airport or traveling from nearby locals, Taxio provides a range of vehicle options to suit individual needs and preferences. Professional drivers, knowledgeable about the area, enhance the experience by offering timely and safe transportation. Taxio's service is an excellent choice for those seeking a seamless travel experience to or from the captivating ruins of Pompeii. Modern Pompeii city, which is distinct from the ancient ruins of Pompeii, is a vibrant Italian city that has grown in the shadow of the historic site. With Mount Vesuvius still looming in the background, it serves as a gateway for the thousands of tourists who come to explore the ancient ruins each year. Despite its ancient namesake, modern Pompeii is a lively community with a distinct local culture, offering a blend of traditional Italian life and contemporary amenities. The city boasts a range of hotels, restaurants, and shops, catering to visitors and locals alike. The Shrine of the Virgin of the Rosary of Pompeii is a notable religious site, attracting pilgrims from around the world. Modern Pompeii is not just a tourist stop, but a living city with its own story, where the past and present coexist, and the legacy of its ancient counterpart continues to shape its identity and draw visitors to its heart. Your comprehensive guide to transportation options for Pompeii. I'm going to go ahead and skip over that. Where to stay in Pompeii City, accommodations for every budget. All right, so navigating Pompeii, understanding Pompeii's layout and tips. Pompeii's sprawling site can be labyrinthine to newcomers. It's divided into regions and blocks, with streets forming a grid system. Key landmarks like the Forum, Amphitheater, and Villa of the Mysteries are well marked, but a detailed map is invaluable. Before visiting, familiarize yourself with the main pathways and the locations of restrooms and amenities to ensure a smooth experience. The Forum, heart of the ancient city. The Forum of Pompeii was the nucleus of civic life, bustling with political, economic, and religious activities. As you walk through the expansive space, surrounded by majestic columns and ancient temples, you can almost hear the echoes of merchants, politicians, and citizens who once gathered here. The Forum enters a profound sense of connection to the daily lives of the Pompeians, making it a must visit to truly grasp the city's historical and cultural significance. The Amphitheater, gladiators, and spectacles. Pompeii's amphitheater, one of the oldest surviving Roman arenas, was a venue of entertainment and social interaction. Here, gladiators battled and spectacles unfolded before up to 20,000 spectators visiting this elliptical structure. You'll stand where the audience once sat, overlooking the arena and imagining the cheers and roars that filled the air. The amphitheater is not just a ruin, but a testament to the Roman love for spectacle and sport. The villas, a glimpse into Pompeian life. The luxurious villas of Pompeii, such as the Villa of the Mysteries, offer a window into the domestic life of the city's wealthy inhabitants. These grand residences, adorned with intricate frescoes and mosaics, reveal much about Pompeian art, culture, and daily routines. Scrolling through the remains of dining rooms, gardens, and servant quarters, visitors gain an intimate understanding of the opulence and the personal stories that characterized ancient Pompeian society. Temples and religious sites, spiritual underpinnings. Pompeii's temples and religious sites reflect the spiritual and cultural diversity of the city, from the grand temple of Jupiter at the Forum to the temple of Apollo. These sacred spaces were central to the city's religious life. Exploring these sites, visitors encounter beautiful architecture and artworks, gaining insight into the religious practices, gods, and rituals that were integral to Pompeian society and influenced everyday life and civic events. Let's see here. Okay. Lesser known frescoes and artifacts. Venture beyond the famous sites to discover Pompeii's lesser-known frescoes and artifacts. The House of the Vetii, or Veteia, boasts intricate artworks, while the House of the Tragic Poet displays poignant scenes. These locations offer a quieter, more reflective visit, away from the main crowds. Quiet corners and secret gardens. This isn't really important. Pompeii's culture and society, daily life and customs. So this is about quiet corners and secret gardens. Pompeii is dotted with tranquil spaces and hidden gardens that once belonged to the city's homes. The House of the Faun and the House of the Small Fountain feature beautiful garden areas, providing a peaceful escape and a glimpse into ancient leisure and beauty. Pompeii's culture and society, understanding the ancient people, daily life and customs. To truly understand Pompeii and delve into the daily life and customs of its people, from the frescoes depicting banquets and daily activities to the artifacts in the lupanar, brothel, you'll gain insight into the social structure, family life, and leisure activities that defined Pompeian society. Trade, economy, and industry. Pompeii was a bustling commercial hub. The shops and stalls at the Forum and Via del Abadanza showcase the city's economic life. Bakeries, wine shops, and the remains of mills and workshops reveal the thriving industries and trade networks that connected Pompeii with the wider Roman world. The eruption of Vesuvius, a tale of destruction and preservation. The events of 79 AD. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD was a catastrophic event that forever changed the landscape of the Roman Empire. After days of rumblings, Vesuvius violently erupted, spewing a deadly cloud of gas, ash, and pumice. Pompeii and nearby towns were buried under meters of volcanic debris. The timeline of the eruption unfolds over 2 days, beginning with falling ash and pumice, followed by pyroclastic flows that entombed the city. preserving it in a macabre time capsule. How the eruption preserved Pompeii. Ironically, the very disaster that destroyed Pompeii also preserved it. The thick layer of ash and pumice acted as a seal over the city, protecting buildings, artifacts, and even the imprints of the victims. This preservation provides an unparalleled archaeological record, offering insights into Roman life, architecture, and culture. The voids left by decomposed bodies were filled with plaster to create haunting casts of the victims, capturing their final moments. Preservation efforts, safeguarding Pompeii for the future. Let's see here. You know what? That's really about it for this article. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the only extant surviving library from the classical world. Yes. You know, the extensive library that existed at the University of Plato in Athens? Completely gone. Completely destroyed, completely gone. Only manuscripts and texts from the Middle Ages remain of that. You know, the Library of Alexandria? Oh yeah, that's gone. Virtually none of the surviving scrolls or papyri from that period survive. And it is truly tragic and sad that there really is not any extant surviving classical libraries, except the one at Pompeii. Pompeii houses the only fully extant classical library of papyri scrolls of the entire ancient world. There are some texts like found in Nineveh, and Babylon, and stuff in the Pharaoh's Valley of the Dead, but that's really it. It's that and the classical library of Pompeii. So let's take a look at that. Ancient scrolls blackened by Vesuvius are readable at last. X-ray scans can just tease out letters on the warped documents from a library at Herculaneum. This is by Victoria Jaggard. A close-up of a Herculaneum papyrus scroll used in an international scanning project. The lavish villa sat overlooking the Bay of Naples, offering bright ocean views to the well-heeled Romans who came from across the empire to study. The estate's library was stocked with texts by prominent thinkers of the day, in particular a wealth of volumes by the philosopher Philodemus, an instructor of the poet Virgil. But the seaside library also sat in the shadow of a volcano that was about to make terrible history. The 79 AD eruption of Mount Vesuvius is most famous for burying Pompeii, spectacularly preserving many artifacts and residents in that once bustling town south of Naples. Okay, so earlier I said that Pompeii was close to the Amalfi Coast. I was wrong. I apologize. For clarification, ancient or classical Pompeii is close to Naples in southern Italy. I do apologize. The tumbling clouds of ash also entombed the nearby resort of Herculaneum, which is filled with its own wonders. During excavations there in 1752, diggers found a villa containing bundles of rolled scrolls, carbonized by the intense heat of the pyroclastic flows and preserved under layers of cement-like rock. Further digs showed that the scrolls were part of an extensive library, earning the structure the name Villa of the Papyri. Blackened and warped by the volcanic event, the roughly 1,800 scrolls found so far have been a challenge to read. Some could be mechanically unscrolled, but hundreds remain too fragile to make the attempt. Looking like nothing more than clubs of charcoal, now more than 200 years later, archaeologists examining two of the scrolls have found a way to peer inside them with X-rays and read text that has been lost since antiquity. Anybody who focuses on the ancient world is always going to be excited to get even one paragraph, one chapter more, says Roger McFarlane, a classicist at Brigham Young University in Utah. The prospect of getting hundreds of books more is staggering. Most of the scrolls that have been unwrapped so far are Epicurean philosophical text, written by Philodemus, prose and poetry that had been lost to modern scholars until the library was found. Epicurus was a Greek philosopher who developed a school of thought in the 3rd century BC that promoted pleasure as the main goal of life, but in the form of living modestly, foregoing fear of the afterlife, and learning about the natural world. Born in the 1st century BC in what is now Jordan, Philodemus studied at the Epicurean school in Athens and became a prominent teacher and interpreter of the philosopher's ideas. Modern scholars debate whether the scrolls were part of Philodemus's personal collection during Modern scholars debate whether the scrolls were part of Philodemus's personal collection dating to his time period, or whether they were mostly copies made in the 1st century AD. Figuring out their exact origins will be no small feat. In addition to the volcano, mechanical and chemical techniques for opening the scrolls did their share of damage, sometimes breaking the delicate objects into fragments or destroying them outright. And once a page was unveiled, readability suffered. Ironically, when someone opened up a scroll, they would write on a separate sheet what they could read, like a fascismal, and the original ink, once exposed to the air, would start to fade, says Brent Salis, a computer scientist at the University of Kentucky who specializes in digital imaging. What's more, the brute force techniques usually left some pages stuck together, trapping hidden layers and their precious contents. From 2007 to 2012, Sales collaborated with Daniel Delattre at the French National Center for Scientific Research in Paris on a project to scan scrolls in the collections of the Institut de France, former treasures of Napoleon Bonaparte, who received them as a gift from the King of Naples in 1802, Micro CT scans of two rolled scrolls revealed their interior structure, a mass of delicate whorls akin to a fingerprint. From that data, the team estimated that the scrolls would be between 36 and 49 feet long if they could be fully unwound. But those scans weren't sensitive enough to detect any lettering. Um, the trouble is that papyri at the same time were written using a carbon-based ink, making it especially hard to digitally tease out the words on the carbonized scrolls. Traditional methods like CT scans blast a target with X-rays and look for patterns created as different materials absorb the radiation. This works very well when scanning for dense bone inside soft tissue, for appearing inside a famous violin, but the method fails at discerning carbon ink on blackened scrolls. A rolled scroll from Herculaneum, once a gift to Napoleon Bonaparte. De la Tre Bibliothèque et l'Institut de France. Now a team led by Vito Mosella of the Italian National Research Council has shown for the first time that it is possible to see letters in rolled scrolls using a twist of CT scanning called X-ray phase contrast tomography, or XPCT for short. Mokella, De la Tre, and their colleagues obtained permission to take a fragment from an open scroll and a whole rolled scroll from the Paris Institute to the European synchrotron in Grenoble. The particle collider was able to produce the high energy beam of X-rays needed for the scans. Rather than looking for absorption patterns, XPCT captures changes in the phase of the X-rays. The waves of X-rays move at different speeds as they pass through materials of various density. In medical imaging, rays moving through an open-filled organ like a lung travel faster than those penetrating thick muscle, creating contrast in the resulting images. Crucially, the carbon-based ink on the scrolls didn't soak into the papyrus. It sits on top of the fibers. The microscopic relief of a letter on the page proved to be just enough to create a noticeable phase contrast. Reporting today in the journal Nature Communications, Mosella, and his team show that they were able to make out two previously unreadable sequences of capital letters from a hidden layer of the unrolled scroll fragment. The team interprets them as Greek words. Nenteoi, meaning would fall, and anioi, meaning would say. Nantoe, meaning would fall, and anioi, meaning would say. Even more exciting for scholars, the team was able to pick out writing on the still rolled scrolls, eventually finding all 24 letters of the Greek alphabet at various points on the tightly bundled document. The 24 letters of the Greek alphabet could be read inside the rolled scroll via the phase contrast technique. Mosella et al., Nature Communications. Even though the current scans are mostly a proof of concept, the work suggests that there will soon be a way to read the full works on the rolled scrolls, the team says. We plan to improve the technique, says Mokella. Next spring, we have an allowance to spend more time at the Grenoble synchrotron, at the Grenoble synchrotron, where we can test a number of approaches and try to discern the exact chemical composition of the ink that will help us improve the energy setting of the beam for our scan. With the text now accessible by virtue of specialized images, we have the prospect of going inside the rolled scrolls. And that's really exciting, says McFarlane. Sales agrees. Their work is absolutely crucial, and I am delighted to see a way forward using phase contrast. Sales is currently working on ways to help make sense of future scans. With support from the National Science Foundation and Google, Sales is developing software that can sort through the jumbled letters and figure out where they belong on the scroll. The program should be able to lump letters into words and fit words into passages. It turns out there are grains of sand sprinkled all the way through the scroll, says CLs. You can see them twinkling in the scans, and that constellation is fixed. Using the sand grains like guide stars, the finished software should be able to orient the letters on the world pages and line up multiple scans to verify the imagery. The projects offer hope for further excavations of the Herculaneum Library. They stopped excavating at some point for various reasons, and one was, why should we keep pulling things out if they are so hard to read, says CLs. But many believe there is a lower wing of the villa's collection still buried, and it may contain more first century Latin texts, perhaps even early Christian writings that would offer new clues to biblical times. Statistically speaking, if you open up a new scroll of papyrus from Herculaneum, it's most likely going to be a text from Philodemus, says McFarlane. But I'm more interested in the Latin ones. So I would not be unhappy at all to get more Latin texts that are not all banged up. For Macula, being able to read even one more scroll is crucial for understanding the library and the workings of a classical school of philosophy. Regardless of the individual text, the library is a unique cultural treasure, as it is the only ancient library to survive almost entire together with its books. He says, it is the library has whole that confers the status of exceptionality. The scanning could also be useful for texts beyond the Roman world, says CLs. Medieval books often cannibalized older text to use as binding, and scans could help uncover interesting tidbits without ruining the preserved works. Also, letters and documents from the ill-fated Franklin expedition to the Northwest Passage in the 19th century have been recovered, but are proving difficult to open without doing damage. All the material could benefit from non-evasive treatment, says Cielis. So that's very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing. So it is very unfortunate that the only classical library of books that actually survive entirely from the entire ancient world is the one they found at Pompeii and Herculaneum, because of the Mount Vesuvius eruption in 69 AD. And it is tragic. A lot of ancient classical texts were later used in book bindings and written over by medieval monks, and that destroyed their the older authenticity, and it's very unfortunate. But yeah, all right. So Soulbreaker, how are you doing, Soulbreaker? Says, have you heard about Mr. Beast? Oh, I know all about that guy. He's from North Carolina. Yeah, and why not talk about him? So yeah, he just uses like people like friends and families that work at his company to pull off these ridiculous crazy stunts, and it's entirely staged, it's pre-planned, it's orchestrated. It's kind of like a movie production scene or whatever with acting. The only difference is that they pretend that it's real. They say it's completely based on like just complete coincidence and all of that nonsense and stuff. And I've heard that he's getting involved in like some in fraud and like scams and stuff. He just wants to make money, okay? He does not go through the extremes that he claims that he does. He was not hunted by an FBI agent or a bounty hunter. He was not in like a, I don't know, in frozen water surviving for like 70 hours or was stuck inside like a small room for like 40 days or whatever. It's just completely ridiculous. And there's no way that you can go like 5 days without eating no food. Yeah, I've heard about his scandals and stuff, and I'm going to be honest, Soulbreaker, I don't think nobody's going to do anything about it because he's very rich and affluent. And rich people usually are allowed to get away with stuff that people with lower incomes would not be able to do. So I hope that answered your question. Anyways, that was life in classical Pompeii. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what classical Pompeii in southern Italy, like around Naples, southern Italy, was like. It also used to be part of Magna Graecia or Greater Greece before the Roman expansion into that region. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Next time, I'll do the life in the romance of the three kingdoms. I bet you don't even know what that is. Come back and watch, and you'll find out.